little bit about trade rumors that we've been seeing recently go on in basketball, because there's a couple teams that I think should be buying, get closer to the deadline, and I think there's certain positions and certain fits that would work out. The number one topic on the agenda that I think everyone's been waiting to talk about today, Giannis Antetokounmpo. So, Giannis Antetokounmpo apparently said before the season started that he's going to give the Milwaukee Bucks about 25 games to start the season to determine whether or not he wants to be traded. Giannis this season is averaging 29, 10, and 6. Normal Giannis numbers, honestly a little down the normal, but the biggest thing is that the Milwaukee Bucks are 10 and 13, and they are barely fighting for a play-in spot in the Eastern Conference right now. If I were to go to the standings, the Milwaukee Bucks are currently sitting at the 10 seed, right under the Sixers, right above the Chicago Bulls. Giannis is at the age now where it feels like he wants to win. You know, he wants to be a part of a championship team, being 30 years old, about to turn 31 in 2 days. Now, he did injure his right calf on a non-contact injury last night. Funny enough, the Milwaukee Bucks actually went out there and beat the number 1 seed in the Detroit Pistons behind a Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. game, so shout out to those two. But the main thing that I have to talk about here is, where are the fits for Giannis? Where is he going to want to go? Now, if you are an opposing team or an opposing general manager, for example, say the Golden State Warriors, the New York Knicks, the Miami Heat, the Cavaliers, the Hawks, the Lakers, the Spurs, and you are interested in trading for a Giannis-type talent, the thing I will say first and foremost, if Giannis says he doesn't want to go to a team, Milwaukee's not going to send him to that team. For what he's done for the state, for the for the Milwaukee Bucks organization over the past couple of years, I really believe that Milwaukee will honor whatever trade he wants to be, wherever he wants to go. The top choice, I will say, is probably the New York Knicks. A Karl Anthony Towns and one of those wing defenders in a Josh Hart, OG, or Mikal Bridges for Giannis Antetokounmpo seems like it would be the best trade for both sides. I think a guy like Deuce McBride, Tyler Kolek, Yabusele, Mitch Rob, one of these guys at least would have to be thrown in, but the New York Knicks do have the draft capital to make a blockbuster trade for Giannis. And it has been rumored that Giannis did come out and say he wanted to be a New York Knick. The one thing I do find interesting about that is, if hypothetically Josh Hart is not in the trade, Jalen Brunson is not in the trade, and one of those wing defenders is not in the trade, you are drastically changing your offense around for a guy like Giannis if you are the Knicks. Over the past couple of years, they've had Karl Anthony Towns as their starting center / power forward when they bring Mitchell Robinson in every once in a while. Cat's a shooter. He's known as a shooting big. We know this, right? He's always been a three-point shooter. He's always been a weaker defender. The Knicks would have to change their game plan around a lot if to acquire a guy like Giannis, and change their scheme around Jalen Brunson a lot. I think it's an interesting fit. We just saw Damian Lillard and Giannis try and have success. Unfortunately, neither of them were able to stay healthy throughout the playoffs, and when one of them was healthy and the other one wasn't, they looked good. When they were both on the court, it looked okay. It looked a little forced every once in a while between the guard and big situation, specifically running pick and rolls. I have been a slight advocate to where if you can keep Karl Anthony Towns and maybe trade Jalen Brunson for Giannis, I think that two big lineup might work even better. But Jalen Brunson is too good of a talent right now, averaging 27, 6, and 3, to probably consider him in trades. And I know the Knicks love Jalen Brunson, love the contract he is, love the leader he is. So I think that this trade would have to be a Karl Anthony Towns swap. Now, I will say I don't think this trade is the best for Milwaukee, getting an aging star that kind of has a weird fit around most players in Karl Anthony Towns, and getting a wing defender does not feel like it's going to be the missing piece for a trade like that. So if you're Milwaukee, I would definitely try and look elsewhere. But if Giannis says he wants to go to New York, I think that would be the main destination for Giannis at first. Another team I would love to make an offer towards him is the Detroit Pistons. I don't know if they have the assets or if they'd be willing to give up a guy like Asar Thompson. Isaiah Stewart has been a top 5 defender in basketball this year, but they have the contracts in Tobias Harris, Duncan Robinson, even Jaden Ivey could be thrown in, maybe a Ron Holland trade. Would love to see Detroit make an offer for Giannis. A couple other teams I think out east, if the Cavaliers don't believe in the growth of Evan Mobley, a possible Evan Mobley-Giannis swap I think would benefit both teams in the long run. I've also seen similar conversations around the Atlanta Hawks with Jalen Johnson. Or if the Milwaukee Bucks are willing to take on a young guard more so than a forward, maybe a Trae Young trade. Trae Young for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Outside of that, I don't really see any other Eastern Conference teams that Giannis would be interested in going to. The only thing I will say is if the Orlando Magic could pull a trade off where it's a Paolo Banchero for Giannis Antetokounmpo swap, that would make the Magic my favorites in the Eastern Conference. Just want to put that out there right now. As for the West, first and foremost, there is no team in the NBA that could match the offer of what the Thunder could give. I do believe Chet would have to be in the trade, just because of positional impact and value. But if they were to throw Chet Holmgren, I gotta think of some other backup guys. AJ Mitchell, Isaiah Joe, Lou Dort, and however many of their 18 first-round picks they have over the next 5 years. You want to prove that you're going to be a dynasty for the next 5 years? Go send the biggest trade offer for Giannis. No, Eric. The answer was Jason Myers. You were correct, I believe. Yeah, you were correct. I would like to see them keep their big three in J-Dub, Chet, and Shea, even if they go trade for Giannis. So if potential Isaiah Hartenstein, Cason Wallace trade was on the, I agree. You can't make OKC better. But what I'm sitting here saying to you, Tony, is if out of every team, once the Milwaukee Bucks get a trade offer that they like, I am 100% confident that if they were to find a trade from the Pistons or the Warriors or some team like that, they could immediately take that trade offer, go right to OKC, and say, can you beat this trade offer? And OKC would easily be able to say yes with how much draft capital they have in the future. I don't want to see OKC get better. I want to see them build around this top three core. But a possible Giannis to OKC trade is not out of the realm of possibilities. The next team I would want to see Giannis on, the San Antonio Spurs, pairing him alongside Victor Wembanyama to make arguably the greatest front court in NBA history. Now, I don't think Spurs fans will be willing to give up any of their top three guards in De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, or former number 2 overall pick Dylan Harper. I also think they'd want to keep Devin Vassell. So when you look at the rest of the team, you're saying, okay, what do they have to trade? This would have to be Keldon Johnson and Harrison Barnes for the contracts. Julian Champagnie would have to be in there. But the Bucks are going to want one of those young players. So if the Spurs are willing to give up, say, the former number 2 overall pick Dylan Harper, or maybe Devin Vassell, who's kind of that guard forward of their team, averaging 16 points a game. To me, the main three untouchable guys on this team, the San Antonio Spurs, are the top 3 guys you see on scoring: Wemby, Fox, and Castle. For me personally, if it takes Dylan Harper to get Giannis, you pull the trigger. I know that they have high hopes for former number 2 overall pick Dylan Harper. He's having a great start to this season, specifically coming off the bench. His driving ability has been good. His poise offensively has been nice. Even seeing him behind the other top guards in De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle, I've been impressed with Dylan Harper. It is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Go get Giannis if you get the chance. That would be my advice to the San Antonio Spurs. If that happens, the Spurs would jump up to, in my opinion, the number 2 team in the West. I'd still have to put the Thunder at 1, but that would be a great 7-game series between the two of them. The next team I would want to talk about has to be my Golden State Warriors, because there's been rumors that Giannis wants to play with Steph Curry. For contract-wise, we would have to include Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green. So if the Warriors are willing to move one of their veteran guys, I think that the Bucks would accept a trade if it included either Jimmy or Draymond as the main piece, surrounded by Jonathan Kuminga being the young piece. Maybe Moses Moody is thrown in as another young piece. Maybe Brandon Podziemski is thrown in as one of the young pieces. It would really be a package of one of those veterans with 2 to 3 of the young players to bring Giannis onto this roster. Now, obviously, as a Warriors fan, I want nothing more than to see Giannis pair with Steph Curry to give Steph Curry a chance at a ring to end his career. But what I will say is we'd be killing a lot of our depth, and if either one of those two who have dealt with slight injury problems, specifically in the playoffs over the past couple of years, went down, it would be the same exact problems that we've seen out of these guys for years now. It's not that I don't want to see Giannis be a Warrior. Obviously, it would give Steph Curry the best chance at that. But what I am saying is that we might give up all our depth, all our young pieces, and then when the Steph Curry and Giannis sign, if it works, we capitalize. We did what we wanted to do. But if those two never find a ring together in the next 2 to 3 years, it would be sad to see Giannis' career go because he trusted a 37-year-old injury-prone point guard. At this point, he has been pretty injury-prone, not just in the playoffs, but in the regular season a little bit too. 100%. I'm not even saying, Tony, it's too much to trade. I think that is a good trade for both teams. What I'm saying is it would just suck to see Giannis and Curry have the expectations of winning a championship for multiple years, and because of their situations and the lack of depth we have behind them, it just doesn't work out the way it should. When other teams, for example, the San Antonio Spurs, the Detroit Pistons, the Knicks, or even the Thunder, they wouldn't be sacrificing their entire future for a 3-year period at a championship. You know, it would be more, they have the pieces, they're now building around it. They're trying to keep Giannis as not just the focal point of their team, but as a focal point of a championship team, where for the Warriors, he would be the option. He would be the reason we win or lose. Kane, the Black Diamond case will be in tomorrow. Confirmed, overnight shipping, getting here tomorrow. That's my Giannis talk. Those are the main teams and stuff I've seen around Giannis. I don't know when he gets traded. I can't lie. I feel like I'm just waiting right now for that Shams notification to come out. I don't know if it'll happen before up until the deadline. I believe the trade deadline is in February. So we're going to have to wait another couple months to see, to get to that trade deadline if they wait on Giannis. But I see Giannis as someone that might be a little impatient. Giannis had that non-contact calf injury that he went down with. Funny enough, by the way, they won the game. I think that's the funniest part of that whole situation, is that Giannis went down 3 minutes into the game, and the Milwaukee Bucks, without Giannis, beat the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference by 4 points. They came back in that third quarter behind Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins having big games. Also want to give a shout out to AJ Green, who had a solid game. But I could very much see, the Milwaukee Bucks watching a game like this, seeing Jaden Ivey come off the bench, seeing Ron Holland off the bench, seeing Tobias Harris drop 20 points, and saying, hey, that might be our package for getting a guy like Giannis off the team. The next player I want to talk about in terms of trading and the trade value happening right now is the guy on the worst team currently in the NBA, Zion Williamson of the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion this season is averaging 22 points per game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. He's only played in 10 games this season, and Zion just got an adductor injury, and it says will be reevaluated in 3 weeks. Now, with the Pelicans trading away their first-round pick this season, mind you, to move up in the draft to take Derek Queen, they drafted Jeremiah Fears with the 7th overall pick. I think Zion is not going to finish this season as a Pelican. Whether or not that trade, benefits the Pelicans, I don't know if it will at this point. Zion has been too injury prone throughout his career to where you can really ask for more than 2 to 3 first-round picks in a trade on top of a young player. I'd be very surprised to see a lot of teams throw a big package out for a guy like Zion. Now, with that being said, I think come playoff time on the right team, Zion could bring a very, very, very big boost to a playoff team come playoff time. Some teams that I want to point out that I think would be good fits for Zion. First and foremost, I'm going to keep saying it, the main buyers at the deadline, the Detroit Pistons. They got to get 1 to 2 more players on that roster that they really trust in clutch situations and when injuries happen, because they tend to deal with injuries specifically at that guard position. So I'd love to see the Pistons make a trade. I could see a team like Philly being interested in Zion. I know that sounds crazy because of the injury stuff, but if they only have to give up a contract, a first-round pick, and one of their young players, Why not go all in on the injury guys? I could see that happening. Another couple teams that I could see interested in Zion, when I really look through this Eastern Conference, I don't see many teams that I think that would be competing that want Zion. I don't think the Celtics would be interested. I don't think the Heat would be that interested. I don't think the Knicks would be that interested. But I see a team down here sitting at 9-12, the Chicago Bulls. I think the Chicago Bulls would be a team that would be interested in Zion Williamson because they need that. They said they're looking for that Pascal Siakam next to Josh Giddey. You know, the Indiana Pacers made the trade for the power forward after acquiring Tyrese Halliburton, got them to the NBA Finals. I think they're looking at Zion and saying, hey, that could be a similar kind of fit. I could see them moving on from maybe a Patrick Williams, Dalen Terry, Noah Esenge, and a first-round pick. Possibly Ayo Dosunmu or Vucevic would have to be in that trade. Maybe Kobe White would have to be in the trade. But I truly believe that the two teams out east that I would see Zion possibly being traded to would be the Chicago Bulls or the Philadelphia 76ers. Out west, I think a good fit for Zion, I know this is a weird one, the Phoenix Suns really are in desperate need of that forward explosive player. Feels like they have everything else you want. They've got a good combo guard. They've got good defensive players. They've got a good center. They've got a good scoring two guard. If they could find a way to get themselves a Zion Williamson on this team, I think it changes what we look at of the Phoenix Suns moving forward. I could also see the Golden State Warriors making a small offer that had a Kuminga kind of Zion Williamson swap. And I honestly wouldn't be that surprised to see a team like the Pelicans be interested in that because of the flashes that Jonathan Kuminga has shown. Outside of that, though, I don't see much of a market for Zion. Maybe the Blazers want to make an offer around Jeremy Grant. Maybe the Grizzlies would want to do a Triple J swap to get Ja and Zion on the same team to bring a little bit more excitement. But any of these top teams in the Thunder, the Lakers, the Rockets, Spurs, Nuggets, maybe the Timberwolves in a Randall swap, I don't see a great market for Zion Williamson. I would love to see him go to the Eastern Conference personally. I'd like to see more better players go to the Eastern Conference. I think he would be a good fit on a couple of these teams. But it's going to be interesting to see where Zion ends up. The report was that the team will accept the first quote-unquote reasonable trade offer for a guy like Zion. With the injuries that we've seen, yes it is. With the injuries that we have seen out of Zion, I'm definitely not surprised to see the Pelicans at 3-19 wanting to trade him. I hope that they trade him to a team that he can actually have a solid impact on. The next team I want to talk about in terms of the trade deadline is this Sacramento Kings team here. There's going to be a couple names that we see on the trade market for the Sacramento Kings. Number first and foremost has to be Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine has been giving no effort on the defensive side of the ball, but we know Zach LaVine over the course of his career to be a above 20 point per game scorer on very good efficiency. Over the past 2.5 seasons, he's shot 44% from three. Normally a career 39% three-point shooter. I'd love to see Zach LaVine go to a team where he could be a third option on offense. For example, maybe Houston needing that offensive spark. Maybe the Lakers get another guard shooter. I'd love to see him as opposed to Brandon Podziemski on my Golden State Warriors. I would even love to see him in a backcourt with Anthony Edwards as opposed to the Dante DiVincenzo backcourt. I would love to see Zach LaVine there. But I think the main teams would be out east that need scoring sparks on their team. For example, I would not be surprised to see a Toronto Raptors interested in another scoring two guard. If they had to trade Grady and say quickly, that might be a trade that they do. The only reason I might not say the Orlando Magic Kane is just because they traded for Desmond Bane in the offseason. Those two might clash. My sleeper play for Zach LaVine that I think would be awesome, not for this year, but for a year from now, would be the Kings making another trade with the Indiana Pacers. A Benedict Mathurin for Zach LaVine swap. So when Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, and this Pacers team is healthy, which they aren't going to be this year, I'd love to see a backcourt of Tyrese Halliburton, maybe Andrew Nembhard, and Zach LaVine as a scorer. But at the same time, I look around a lot of these teams, I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to give up a first-round pick for a guy like Zach LaVine. Even with the talent, do they feel that he's going to be the name that puts them over the edge? The next name I want to talk about is their starting center, the Kings starting center, Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis has been injured majority this year, but I think that there's a market for Sabonis as well. He'll be reevaluated in another 1 to 2 weeks with that left knee injury. Sabonis should be a top name in the trade market. He's been one of those best players, at the center position for years. He's been a multiple-time All-Star. Some teams I would love to show interest in Sabonis. First and foremost, the Orlando Magic, my top team. They need that playmaking ability in the half court. I don't see anyone that could fit this Magic team better than Domantas Sabonis running the center. Also, don't forget Sabonis was a 40% three-point shooter on only, I think, 1 attempt a game, but hey, he was making his threes. Another team that I could see interested in Sabonis is the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, if they could make an Anthony Simons for Domantas Sabonis swap happen, I could definitely see Sabonis being an intriguing piece for when Tatum comes back on a healthy Boston Celtics. Out east, though, I don't think there's many other teams that would show a lot of interest. Maybe a team like Charlotte, who's looking for that starting center. If they want to go, into a win-now mode, I just don't see Charlotte wanting to do that. I don't really see any of these top teams interested in big men other than those two, the Magic and the Celtics. Out west, though, I would love Sabonis in a Suns jersey. It's next to Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks. I'd love Sabonis in a Warriors jersey next to Draymond Green, Jimmy, and Steph. I would even love to see Sabonis as a Blazer next to Donovan Clingan. Let Sabonis run the 4, let Clingan run the 5, and let them run that double big lineup of offense-defense mixture in Portland. Once again, though, unless the value on the trade is much lower than I think it is, I think that Sabonis and LaVine are going to be awkward players to get trading, and we might look back on this Kings team and say, man, you made the 3 seed, you made the playoffs that one season with Light the Beam, and they did not utilize their assets well at all after that. Last but not least, I want to talk about a couple guards in the NBA that have been rumored to be on the trade market. Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies, Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks, and LaMelo Ball of the Charlotte Hornets. Specifically in the Eastern Conference guards with Trae Young and LaMelo Ball, we have kind of seen the teams play better without their starting lead guards than with them. For example, the Charlotte Hornets benched LaMelo Ball the other day for the entire fourth quarter and overtime and won the game behind Con Knuppel. The Atlanta Hawks honestly have looked like a much better, well-rounded team with Nickeil Alexander-Walker being their main guard as opposed to Trae Young. Names like Trae Young, I could definitely see having a big market right now in this, in the trade market. For example, the Toronto Raptors. I would love to see the Raptors go into a win-now mode and try and get one of those young guards to replace Emmanuel Quickley in their lineup, using the Grady Dick value, using the Colin Murray-Boyles value, getting rid of Quickley. I know he's having a good season, averaging 16 points, 4 and 6, but we all know Emmanuel Quickley to kind of be who he is, and I could see an upgrade like a Ja Morant or Trae Young bringing a lot more excitement to this Toronto Raptors rebuild. Other teams I think would be interested in a guard swap are the Boston Celtics. Might be looking for that next point guard to put in that starting lineup. The Miami Heat are a team I could definitely see. I know that they have Tyler Hero and Norman Powell, and it's going well. But if you could get a LaMelo Ball for one of those guys, I would pull the trigger. I could also see a team like Brooklyn giving away 3 to 4 first-round picks to get a guy that they say we want to build around, being maybe a Trae Young or Ja Morant. But specifically looking out west, the Houston Rockets are definitely a team that I would say could go for a buy-win or win-now mode, trading away the contracts of guys like, Dorian Finney-Smith, Tari Eason, maybe even Jabari Smith Jr. after the contract, Clint Capella. If Reed Shepherd had to be in the deal, I'd be interested to see if the Rockets would do something like that. But I think the Rockets would be a team looking for a point guard. We talked about the Minnesota Timberwolves this year looking to find that guard next to Anthony Edwards. A Ja Morant or Trae Young with Anthony Edwards sounds awesome if you're a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. A couple other teams that maybe would want a guard upgrade. The Mavericks. If they're going to trade Anthony Davis, they want to go younger. I could see an Anthony Davis, 3-teamer with LaMelo somehow ending up in Dallas to build around flagging him. I could see Utah making a move to find a guard next to Keontae George. But yeah, those are the main teams that I think would make a lot of big basketball talk. But with the basketball trades being talked about recently, I just wanted to do a little recap of players I think should be traded, could be traded, or will be traded. And that right there is going to do it for my basketball talk.
Talking about